presentation is going to focus on a new customer acquisition strategy known as the customer-customer sales strategy. This is related to a topic we discussed a while back related to surveys. But rather than surveying or better understanding our customers at their level, we're going to take this one level deeper and survey the customer's customers. What this does is it helps increase the value and the insights that we can provide customers, which is ultimately how we're going to get into the door, how to differentiate ourselves, and really help them justify any type of change, which can be fairly difficult for them to look at. And so there's a famous story of an individual who purchased a chainsaw, and he was promised a 10x production rate after purchasing it. But after trying all day to increase his production rate, he took it back to the shop owner and explained that it wasn't really working for him. He could barely get through a single tree all day long, and the shop owner looked puzzled, but said, "Let me take a look at it." And he started it up, and the customer said, "How did you do that?" And the shop owner realized that the customer hadn't understood how to use the tool correctly. He didn't know how to turn it on. He was using it incorrectly. And that's the same thing with our products. Imagine trying to tackle a complex technology solution and trying to understand the value in it. Sure, we can sell a phone or an email or a security solution, but the true value of something really lives within us as the sales rep. We have to understand how does the application of this service going to transform this company's business? And the best way to understand that, the best way to understand the value that this product brings, is to look at the relationship between the customer and their customers. And the only way to do that is to do some investigating. And that's what the purpose of this training is about, is if we can uncover insights and pieces of information that shed light on problems, on gaps, on values, and overall just how the business functions, that will give us everything we need in order to correctly apply the value of the products to the clients. And that will ultimately increase the value of the products to the clients, making it easier for them to justify the purchase. Without that insight, there is no value. And so some things that we could ask their clients, and we'll talk about how to get that information, how to figure out who their clients are later. But these are kind of generic questions. Some of them will change based off of the types of companies that you're talking to, or the types of clients that you're talking to, or the industry. But in general, most scenarios you could apply these questions. So a few examples would be, why did you choose this company? Why did you stop using another company? What do you like about their service? What don't you like about their service? How did you find them? And on a related topic, if you're talking to companies who are looking at outsourcing or not outsourcing, why would you outsource or why wouldn't you outsource? Because every company has a choice between hiring somebody internally or outsourcing the service. And so this is something that we can look at, but a good source for information is Google reviews. We talked about Google reviews a few times in the past. But there's a lot of the questions could actually be answered here directly. You don't actually have to reach out to anybody. But you do have enough information here to find the contact information for these individuals. But you can go to the company's clients, you can go to their competitors' clients, but you can find a lot of good information about why people have chosen things, why they didn't choose different services or companies. This is a great resource for finding information about companies. If you do decide to reach out, you can call them or you can email them. This is an example of something that I would use. I would use a subject line recommendation. And then I would say, I noticed that your company works with or has worked with Ensign Engineering. I'm doing some research about different engineering companies and wanted to know why you chose Ensign over other companies. Thanks in advance for your help. This is just like an open-ended question, which is the way most of these are designed. We're just trying to to gather categorical information about decision-making processes related to those companies. Now, we don't start with a list of questions because people probably aren't going to do that, but you may, depending on how open they are to discussions and how friendly they are, you might say, hey, thanks for answering that. Did you work with somebody in the past? Is there anything you don't like about this company? You know, you can add a few questions after you engage in the conversation, but not in that initial step. So you want to kind of start with one question and then move forward. Likewise, you can look up companies who have decided not to outsource different services and find people that are trying to hire internally for the very jobs that your customers offer. And this is a great opportunity to ask them why. You obviously are looking for an accountant. You've made the decision not to outsource this. So how did you come to this conclusion? An example of how you would actually communicate this and say, you could say, look, I ran across your job opening on Indeed. Wanted to know why you decided to hire internally versus outsourcing the opportunity. I'm trying to better understand which direction is better for my clients. And so this will help you understand, again, these companies have that decision and can think about, should we outsource? Why don't we outsource? Is it pricing? Is it just because we have too much work? These are things that will help your clients in understanding what's going on within their business, but it'll also help you have an advantage point, because the true value that you provide is being able to provide information that isn't already readily available on Google. Because when your clients are looking at different services and looking at how to outsource things, they're going to go to Google. They're going to look for information. They're going to try to make that information based off of what's already available. Google's replacing you as a provider for value. But if you can provide unique insights, which the greatest insights that you can provide a client is information about their clients, because that's their bread and butter. But having this type of information gives you a monopoly and makes it so much more valuable for you to the client. If you need contacts, you can go to upsellreport.com, which usually gives you some good data on different contacts on different companies. You can also go to ensable.com/data and pull different regions. A lot of what you'll find as you're doing research, most of everything will be related to customer service. This is going to be one of the main differentiators. And technology has a lot of ways to improving and enhancing this and filling gaps and working with this, but ultimately, a lot of the questions that you have may not be directly related to the services and products that you sell, but you have to be able to find the connection. What is it that you can do to solve their problems, to solve the gaps that you're uncovering through these discussions and through these surveys with their customers? If you can't provide value, if you can't understand that, then it really can't merit a conversation with these clients. And so you need to be able to understand their business, but until you uncover something that identifies a gap, you can't really execute a plan. But it shouldn't take a lot of research before you start seeing those gaps and start connecting the dots. But just because you understand a problem doesn't necessarily mean that you have the solution. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But again, a lot of what you're going to talk about is customer reviews, customer service, and how to improve that, because ultimately we live in the era in which customers have been empowered because of customer reviews, because of public information, and a lot of that will change the outcome of the company's business. And so helping find ways to improve that will be instrumental. Another topic we talked about in the past was experimental sales. When we're uncovering problems, we need to also uncover solutions, but we can't identify solutions until we run experiments. And the best way, if we do identify a problem, we don't come up with a solution until we run an experiment. And so rather than saying, look, client, I know how to fix this, you have to say, can we try something? I've been doing research. This is what I found. I have an idea. Would you be willing to try this with me? And so you take whatever the problem is, come up with a few ideas on how to address that, and then run those experiments. At that point, you'll start getting additional information because having the problem is only half the problem. We have to be able to discover the solution, but again, it needs to be done through an experiment. Experiments, if you've listened to the discussion we had about that, are much easier for clients to accept because it takes away the risk in adopting new solutions. It's the label of an experiment makes it feel like it's okay to fail, which is the number one reason why clients resist change, is because they don't want to look bad by adopting solutions that don't work. But you can take away that fear by giving them a label that says, look, we're going to try something and it's okay if it fails. We've identified a problem, we have an idea, let's give it a try. And so it's really important that everything that we sell, everything that we offer is labeled as an experiment, because that will take away that fear. Now you're probably wondering, well, this is a lot of work. I rather would just go with traditional sales, reach out to companies, see if we can help. But in reality, this is one of the most effective ways to lowering your customer acquisition costs. That's the whole reason why we're talking about this. Because although you're probably thinking, well, this only applies to a few companies. But if we were talking to a specific type of company, let's say it's an accounting firm, how many accounting firms could you talk to about what you're doing? You want to, when you're executing this strategy, you're not limited to just a few companies. You're limited to all the companies within that space. But you always want to start local. This is ultimately what helps you overcome a lot of those higher acquisition costs. Starting local will always have a higher return rate. But once you've dominated that local market, then you move on to a regional market for that same space. Once you've dominated that regional market, then you can go on to a national one. But to have all of that momentum behind you, all of those named accounts, that understanding, all of those experiments, and reaching national accounts and reaching outside of that local market will be much easier at that point. Once you dominate the national market, then you would go to a different but related industry. And because you understand that space in a related field, it will be much easier to continue that same process. And so while it will be a slight upfront investment in performing and executing these surveys, if you gain that insight and understanding, which may take you a few weeks to gather that information, it will certainly open the doors to lots of other companies all over the market within that space. But the conversations will be 10 times more effective, 10 times better close ratios, 10 times better appointment ratios, because people are going to want to talk to you because you have a monopoly on information. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do here, is trying to help the clients understand the value of the products that you're selling. And because they're complex, it's going to take some extra effort for them to truly understand how the application of these specific products can change their business. But until you understand the client's clients, you have a limited view and perspective in how the outcome of those products will actually impact the businesses that you're trying to work with. And it's your duty to actually go out and understand that. And that's what this exercise is for. It's helping you provide insights not available anywhere else, which helps provide you with the differentiation that you need to have conversations with clients. So hopefully that was helpful for everybody. If you do have any questions, I'll stick around. Otherwise, we hope everyone has a safe and joyful weekend. If you do have any questions, you're welcome to jump into the chat, and then I'll stick around. So John is asking, what can I do about B2C clients? Should I focus on them? That's a great question. So there is an application here for B2C and B2B. It doesn't necessarily have to be just B2B clients. A lot of your customers, which are businesses, cater to consumers. And so It may be a little bit harder to track down those consumers. Sometimes you may just have to rely 100% on the Google reviews and gather enough information about finding ways that, so if you go through all of the Google reviews of all the different companies that offer that service, and every time they answer a question related to one of those topics that we talked about, you can simply add it to that survey as if they had answered the survey directly. Sometimes you can find different ways to reach out to them, but it is harder to reach consumers directly. But if you can use services like free411.com and just look up their phone number. But again, there are some barriers when reaching out to consumers rather than to businesses. But if you do run into a lot of barriers, just rely 100% on those Google reviews or any other types of restaurant reviews or anything else that you can come across that would provide insights to answer the questions that you're trying to gather. So that's a good question. Thanks, John. Any other questions before we wrap up?